So good morning, everyone. Afternoon, evening, if we have any of those joining today. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm a field sales engineer for Senstar, and I'm going to be hosting your Symphony 101 training today. Here's our contact information. If you need it, I'll leave it on this screen just for a few minutes. So if you have any further questions after the presentation that you'd like to ask myself, feel free to shoot me a quick note. You can even call if you desire to do that as well. Also joining us today and who will be moderating our chat session is Daryl Jackson. He's an FSC for North America as well. And we would ask that if you do have any questions, since everybody is in listen only mode, if you would ask those through the question sections of the webinar or even pose those in the chat session, Daryl will be moderating those. And so any of those questions that are presented there, he'll go ahead and provide an answer to you in that same media context, just to help keep the flow of the presentation moving along. We expect this presentation to take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how fast or slow I talk today. Some days you get little nuggets and gems, other days it's all business. But we hope that you'll learn something today, and that is the idea with these seminars. So again, thanks for joining, and we'll go ahead and jump right into it now. So on the agenda, what you see before you is the Symphony client, and that's really where we're going to be spending most of our time today. We're going to talk and introduce you to Symphony client, give you a brief background on what we feel it can do for you and some of the nice advanced features that we do have within it. We'll cover the live view, single and multi-views, how to add cameras, how to rearrange the cameras. We'll go into a historical view, meaning review of cameras. So if you have data and information, this will give you a good idea of how to search for video, how to recall video, alarms, and events. We'll go over the activity for cameras. So we'll show you a dashboard that allows you to, in a very concise manner, review all the activities for your entire system. We'll also show you how to export video, how quick and simple that is. We have a built-in instant messaging app that we'll review quite shortly. It's pretty straightforward, but very effective. And then we have a map section as well that we're going to spend a bit of time in and showing you how to navigate maps and utilize maps to add a bit more efficiency within the operations of the Symphony client. And then lastly, we'll spend a few moments on the alarm log, or the alarm console as we call it, and the two functional components of that being the simple mode, which is standard, and then the advanced mode. So let's go ahead and give you a bit of a background here. I'm going to jump over to my actual Symphony client so you can see what that is while I'm chatting at you here. So let me get down to it. So what is Symphony client, right? Symphony is responsible for receiving, monitoring, managing, and unifying multiple disparate systems into a single common operating platform. This builds efficiency, simplicity of operations, and the unification of Senstar branded products, and the inclusion of ecosystem partners and third-party partners as well. So the key statement that I like to always point people back to is that Symphony is a common operating platform. And as I mentioned, it'll ingest just about anything that you want, any data, any information, or anything that you may be trying to collect and display for your operators to help them become more efficient and better at doing their job. So let me get my laser pointer here so everybody can see what I'm pointing to while I'm talking about it. So I'm going to give you a brief definition of some of the things that you see. So what you're looking at right now is the classic view of Symphony. There's a couple of different things you can do when Symphony starts and when it opens up, and this is one of them, being the simple view. The simple view is just this. You have your device tree here on the left-hand side, which shows all the connected devices you have to your servers. And then up on the top, you have your main menu banner. And this main menu banner is where you spend most of your time navigating through things like the timeline, any video decorations you might want to have, adding camera views or single cameras, and even locking those cameras together for review. All the way through the very end, which is the main cogwheel that gets you into the settings that allows you to change some of the functional design components of Symphony client. All the way off to the right-hand side, all by itself over here, is the alarm console. The alarm console is basically a ticker feed for all of the alarms that are coming through your server and hitting your server. So what you see here is on the top, the wrong way detection. I have a trip line, and I have a whole lot of other alarms that are coming through all the way down. And so the newest alarm pops to the top, or it's based on severity. So if you have a higher severity level, that alarm will always show on top until cleared as well. So again, all the way here on the right is the alarm console, our device tree, and our main menu. And then right in the middle for the best operation is the actual camera view. So from this view, as you can see, there's no cameras here added to it yet. So I'm going to turn off my laser pointer and actually start building out a live view for you. So in the live view, there's a couple of different ways that you can get your cameras on screen. You can take your camera and just click it. And if this is your active tile, which would be indicated by a blue banner that is highlighting it, so this blue banner on top and then these blue bars all the way around the edge, that means this is my active and working tile. And just by simply clicking on a camera, it'll populate that field of view for you. So that's one way of doing it, is making sure you're on an active tile and then selecting the camera from the device tree to populate. So let's go ahead and blank this out again. And then the second option is to left click and then drag the device over and then let go. And once you've released the left click button, that camera will again populate into that live camera field of view. So there's a couple of different things that you can do as well here, which is quite nice and streamlined. So if you've created folders, so you'll see here I have a main device folder and then I have a subfolder called loop video. These are the loop video files that I do have. If you have a folder and you have maybe 6 or 9 tiles up here and there's the same volume of cameras in your folder, you can actually grab the folder head and then drag that in and it'll populate for you as well. So let me show you that, because I think that's a pretty efficient manner of loading up your camera. So again, grabbing the folder and then moving it over to the right and having all of those cameras populate for you. So that's another quick little efficient way to actually build out a camera layout in a live camera view. Okay, so I'm going to go back to a single view so it's easier to see. We'll add that camera back here again. Okay. So when you're in this view in a client station or console, you also have an option to right click. And you'll be hearing me reference that a lot. If you need to do something in the client, right click, right? Right click to do this, right click to go to settings, right click here, and we can even take this to full screen. So to streamline it so that it has a better user experience and you can get more details with less distraction, you can actually take any one of those cameras in that live view and populate those to a full screen view. So again, as you'll see here, it eliminates the banners on the top, the sides, and the bottom, and it's just highlighting that specific camera. Very simple to get out of this mode. You can hit the escape button and it'll bring you right back into the live view of the client with the rest of your device tree and menus up top. Okay. So as I'm moving my mouse around, you can't see the mouse, but what you can see are video overlays that are popping onto the screen. So if I was to release my mouse and leave it alone for a few seconds and not move it anymore, these video overlays will disappear. So as I move my mouse again, the video overlays appear, and this happens to be a pan-tilt zoom camera. So because of such, I have the option to go to specific presets and utilize the on-screen display for that. I can actually pan the camera back to the left or right, zoom the camera in and out, and then I can send the camera back home. So all of those pertinent video overlays are relative to the type of camera that it is. So this is a PTZ, and again, you'll see that we have the PTZ on-screen displays. Up on the top left-hand side, what you're going to see here is a magnifying glass, which is to search for a given area. So if there's motion, you could paint in an area and say, I only want to search this location. You have a download icon just below that magnifying glass. You can also search by time and date. So if an operator reported to a manager on a specific time and date this event occurred, you can simply click on the calendar and it'll pull up the calendar with the active days of recording and then allow you to select the time and date here as well. And then we have a nice feature here that I think is quite underutilized in the software, and this is a picture-in-picture. So I'm going to open up a camera that actually displays a little bit better with the picture-in-picture. So as you can see here, this is a live view. People are moving. If I turn on picture-in-picture and live view, nothing happens. But as soon as I hit pause down below, and we'll go over this lower bar here in a few minutes, you'll notice that the video in the middle stops. And so this is giving me a good opportunity to review and manage and maybe export video that might have occurred with a specific event attached to it. But what you're seeing in the picture-in-picture is the actual live view. So an operator can still do their job to review video while maintaining visibility on that specific target or asset. So it is quite a nice feature. Oftentimes I feel it's underutilized. And with that, you can also move the picture-in-picture to any portion of the screen that you prefer for your viewing comfort. Okay, so we'll take the picture-in-picture off and we'll go back to live video. That is one that I wanted to show you. So now again, as you saw, when I hit pause on the bottom, this is the last video overlay that we have to discuss here. On the far left-hand reaches of it, you have your slower speeds, your faster speeds, and you can increase up to a 32 times speed. And then if you wanted to go all the way back down to a review in reverse, you can do a 16 times speed in review, rewinding, if you will. So we also have a couple of different overlay icons here where you have the white button, which is a bookmarks button. The one just to the right of that is a alarm, so you can go and navigate to the previous alarm or a future alarm. You can navigate directly to specific motion events, which is what this blue button indicates, and then going back by 10 seconds, 1 second, simply going back by a single frame, playing the video, and or using this button here, which is what I call my summarized video. So when I go ahead and put this on pause, I'm going to leave this here to the standard 1 times play. And this is something that is quite useful. So in this camera here, you'll see here, I'm going to turn the timeline on, and you'll see there's a lot of recording, okay? So what happens here, if I need to move through a lot of recording in a very short order of time, I can hit this summarize video button. And the summarize video button, and what it allows me to do is to play back the video in a 16 times speed. Now, if there was specific events that had occurred, like alarm hash marks, it'll jump directly to that point in time as well. And so it's a very efficient way for you to review motion activity or alarm video based on the hashes that you see here in the timeline. As you see, there is a single orange hash here. And then this summarized video takes hours and turns it into minutes of review, which is quite nice. So if I had video looked a little bit more like this, where I've got more alarms and motion-based video, you'll see this rolling indicator on the timeline, this nice little circle here, is moving right through all of the motion and alarm video and skipping the static, no activity on the timeline, which is quite nice. So that's a really nice feature that we've added here, and that's that summarize video button that you get down on that main menu bar. Okay, so I'll pause that because sometimes it's a bit distracting. All right, so what you're probably asking is, okay, well, I see there's motion activity here, and I see there's alarm activity here, but what I'm not seeing is I'm not seeing any indication on screen of that activity. So how do I see that? So how you see that is any of these bars up here that are highlighted in blue, like you saw, I turned the timeline on, so now it's highlighted in blue. I can turn on my video decorations. And when I do that, the video decorations now appear for the naming of the camera, the time and date, the direction of travel for these specific vehicles, the classification, which is actually what you're seeing here with this yellow binding box, and then the alarm classification as well. So this Jeep down here on the bottom proceeded to drive the wrong way on a street that has like 9 arrows, 14 signs, all within a matter of 100 yards. So yes, it is still possible, and yes, he did drive the wrong way, but at least he noticed it and he figured it out, right? So let's go back 10 seconds so you can see it play out. It was kind of fun. And we'll hit the play button here, and you'll see the decorations, the video decorations, indicating 1, that there's motion, and 2, it's classifying it as a specific vehicle, and then notifying you of the alarm condition. So that's how you would enable video decorations on the Symphony client to be made aware of motion activity or even alarm event-based activity. So there's another overlay that we see here on these cameras. And what you're seeing now are these blue boxes. So there's a blue box with a number 7 here on the right and a number 1 here on the left. These are what we call visual tracking buttons. These visual tracking buttons allow you to logically proceed to the next camera in line and in order. So in the event that the next camera is camera number 7 here on the right-hand side of my screen, and there's a pedestrian moving from screen left to right, I could simply click on that blue box, and that's going to take me to the next camera. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and get to live too, so it makes more sense. And then you can see now we've moved to that next camera in line. You don't have to keep it as a rectangular shape. You can see here I've made this one into a really poorly drawn arrow, which gives you the indication, yes, it's to the left, but visually it's not very appealing. But again, if I was to click that, it'll drop me right back to that camera that was preceding it logically in order. So I'll just move through a few of these so you can see how we can proceed through these cameras, just moving logically to 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it's a very good way for you to allow your operators to move logically from a camera that's maybe along a fence line, left to right. You might have cameras that are stacked or running down a hallway, so you could put these indicator boxes here, and I could actually move it from, instead of the screen right, I could move it to the top and say the next camera in line is going to be up here, just to give them a good visual reference of where their cameras will be. Okay. All right. And so let's talk just a minute about the timeline too. I briefly discussed it and I said, hey, the blue stuff is motion, these orange marks are alarms, and then you have gray matter in between. And then sometimes you'll notice there's dark gray or charcoal, nothing in between. So that blank in the timeline means there's no recording. Anything with a light gray background means that there's recording without movement or activity. And anything in blue means that there is activity on the screen. And then when you have these orange, everybody sees it as red, but I've been told it's orange. When you see these orange or red hash marks, that is an alarm rule condition that has been met, and that visual indicator is now on screen for you. That's a very quick way for an operator to come in, and typically you're not going to have this many alarms. I run the video just so it's visually appealing, and you'll be able to move through those in a very short order to understand what events occurred and where the activity is occurring in your scene if somebody was to report an issue. Okay. Very good. So now we've been able to build out a single view camera. So let's go ahead and go into like a live multi-view is what we would call it, and show you how to create those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the timeline off just because it's a bit distracting at times. And what I'm going to do is let me move this indicator here back over to the right-hand side of the screen. We'll get it out of the way. And there's a couple of different ways that I can build it out. So earlier on, you saw me go directly to the camera view, which again is the main menu up on top. I dropped that camera menu down and I wanted to start a new docked view. This new docked view means this camera selection that I choose here will be loaded into the docked client. And the reason I say that is because there's a floating view option as well. So if I was to select a new floating view, you'll see this floating view, it appears, and it's got the 4 cameras in it, but it doesn't have the same volume of features, right? There's very limited main menu features that you get. There's no device tree here. There's no alarm console on the right-hand side. So the intention for this floating view is to be moved off to a second monitor. So if you have 2, 3, or 4 monitors at an operator's workstation, just create a new floating view and then highlight that and then select the camera that you want to add to that floating view. And now you can move that floating view off to that second monitor, third monitor, or however you are choosing to set up your layout. Okay? So those are the 2 different ways to create more multi-views. But let's go ahead and work with a docked view since it's a bit more local and not as busy of a scene. And again, as you saw, there's a couple of ways to create that. So I could simply click on the camera that I want to add to each of these tiles. So we'll go through these and drag them in. We can do that. And again, back just referencing quickly, the frustrating part is you see this camera here is highlighted with that blue banner, right? So it's wrapped all the way around. And I'm looking at this camera here on my top left, quadrant 1, and I go down here to my camera selection and I say, well, I'm going to add a new camera, right? And I click on these cameras and it keeps appearing on the far top right screen, but not on the top left. Well, that's because you're not working in an active tile, okay? So just some of the things to pay attention to. So again, that's how you build it out, dragging and dropping. If I start this over again, the other option, as I showed you earlier, was let's go ahead and just drag the folder in. That's great too. So you can drag that in. So that's the second option. And then the option that I prefer a lot is using camera views. So here in the device tree on the left-hand side, I'm highlighting it here for you in blue. I've got camera views, and I've created a looped video demo view so that we can utilize it here in this demonstration. And by clicking on that, it's got all the cameras that I saved in that view, and it'll pre-populate them into each one of the respective quadrants. So that's a very fast and efficient way for you to do that and populate your video. Now, some operators prefer seeing things differently, and some operators prefer live view all the time. If you're like me, I don't want to be distracted. I just want to see event video that appears. So what I might do, and I'm going to reference it again, right, is I might right click and I might go to my settings here. And the second tab over is my activity tab. And this is going to be creating an alarm window. So maybe you have a front entrance, a loading bay entrance that you have to monitor, and maybe the reception desk. So those always have to stay live. The other 100 cameras on site, you only want to see event video. So by right clicking and going to this second tab called activity, you can switch the view when the alarm occurs. And you can even limit those actions. So if you wanted to have a certain window only showing exterior alarms and then another window showing interior alarms, you can break it down into interior, exterior, or however you want to see the alarms come across. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to limit it to specific alarms. And there's two alarms that I know are running, so I'll select it, which is the NSS trip line. And then, what is the other one here? Wrong way detection. There we are. So we're going to apply this. Actually, I want it to blank out too. So you can also perform a secondary action. So let's just say, just go back to waiting for a new event after 10 seconds. So we'll apply this and then we'll hit OK. So now you'll notice it says waiting for event. So here, it's not distracting, right? It's just a simple dark screen. It's waiting for an event. And when those events start to occur, as you can see with the wrong way detection and then my thermal perimeter loop, those events will populate into this upper right quadrant tile and sit there for 10 seconds, showing the operator the visible effect of, what tripped that rule. So it's a very good way for you to monitor multiple alarms in a single pane of glass, right? Very simple, very efficient for the operators here. So we're about to get an alarm with the individual driving the wrong way. So I'll stop talking for just a brief minute and I'll let that alarm populate so you can see the event window trigger. Okay. So here we go. Now we should be getting one here in just a second with the Jeep. Okay, so there you go. So again, he violated that rule, and now the Jeep is going the right way, but again, it sits here for 10 seconds, and it's going to wait for the next rule. So it's a very nice way for you efficiently to watch and monitor the alarms coming through your system. So I'll leave that here, and as I continue to talk, you'll see these events and these alarms come through, and you'll watch this screen populate with those events. Okay, so very good. So now I want to show you a couple of different things on going through archive video and reviewing video, since this is where most operators spend a lot of their time. So there's two things you can do like we discussed before. So you could search by clicking that icon, the magnifying glass icon, which is the top left overlay. And you could paint a specific area and say, hey, I just want to see all events that occurred in this area in the last day, right? Just show me things driving through here. If you have one of our advanced analytics turned on, you could say, I only care about seeing people, or I only care about seeing vehicles, which really starts to refine your search. So that's a plug for our analytics, if you didn't catch that. You can utilize that metadata that's been stored to actually enhance the search and reduce the amount of information that you see. So I just did a blanket search only for vehicles in the last day, and I got 224 results. So now I could filter through any one of those 224 results here on the right-hand side. and pull that video up and export it if necessary. Okay, so that's one way to search. And then again, by time and date. So if I knew there was something that I recorded yesterday, I could just select that date and I would turn this on. No, we were in it probably around 10 a.m. and then hit select. And then it'll jump me directly to that point in time. So as I do that, you'll see it goes to that point in time for the video here in the timeline. So two different ways, very efficient. Now most people ask, well, you know, I've got 4 cameras up here on my screen. What I'd really like to see is I'd like to see all the event video for all of those cameras because they're all related. They're the same corridor, and I want to see when that event occurred. So if I was to do that, what I would do is I'd come up here to this main menu at the very top and I would hit the padlock. What that padlock does is it locks all the active tiles in my client view up to 4 and synchronizes them. So I'm just going to click on this other camera tile on the bottom left quadrant on the actual alarm that happens. And what's going to happen is all of the cameras that I have here in my video are going to synchronize to that point in time. So let me go ahead and make sure this is on. Okay. Go back here, synchronize. And now all of the timelines go back to that point in time, and they're going to synchronize their playback as well. So if I was to hit play on this camera down here, it's going to play the event and the alarm that occurred. And what it's going to do is also synchronize to the camera on the bottom right, the camera on the top left, and I'll play back through that video simultaneously. So it's quite a nice feature in the fact that if you did have multiple videos that you needed to review simultaneously, you can lock them all and you can play them all back simultaneously. And then you may want to export 2, 3, or 4 of those cameras. So let's say there were 2 or 3 of the cameras that are related. I would hit my export button. I'd say, hey, that's the time frame I want. Of course, you can modify it. And now let's add those cameras as well, right? So it was the LPR camera, it was my thermal camera, and it was my wrong way. So I'm going to add all those cameras here. Oh, one's a duplicate. And I'm going to export all 3 of those cameras simultaneously, right? So now I've got my video exporting here. Sorry, Symphony just closed the main screen. And once that video is done on that export, that's always going to ask me, hey, do you want to review it and see it? So very quickly, can you go into Symphony? You can monitor multiple videos and say, yep, these cameras are all associated and related, and export those. And you can export up to 8 concurrently if you needed to see all of the video for those cameras. So again, they'll synchronize up to 8 on that video export. Okay. All right. So this scene's getting a little bit busy, so I'm just going to load this back to a single blank view. And then we're going to move into a historical view for active cameras. So again, up in the main menu, we're going to start with the cogwheel, and we're going to drop it down into the very, very bottom. It says activity for cameras, and we'll select that. I'm going to make it full screen so it's a bit easier to see. And you'll notice that now I've got all the cameras on the left-hand side that are listed here, and I've got activity for them. Okay, and you'll see all the alarms that come through, and I can zoom in and zoom out on these. So if I was wanting to actually navigate to a specific alarm event or conditions that had occurred, I could select those. I'm going to move through the timeline because it's going to be dark at 1 a.m. It's not very productive time to review video. Here I've got up on the very top as well, I've got 1 camera view, and I deselect this for this given reason. If I knew there was an alarm vent here, you'll see that I can pull up this docked view, and now I can load that camera into this activity for my camera. And I'm going to increase this so it looks a bit better. So I've selected that 1 camera in that event here. Well, let's go ahead and say maybe there was another camera with an event that preceded it just a little bit. I want to pull that camera in here as well, and I'm going to drop this camera in just to the left of that first camera that I added. So now I'm going to get a video for that thermal camera. And let's say maybe there's 1 more camera that I wanted to see as well. Okay, something maybe post the actual event. So I'm going to pull this camera down here too, and I'm going to drop it in. And as you see, I'm just building video tiles, video layout, and this is strictly from a review standpoint, right? So now I'm going to play this camera back and see what actually hit. Okay, that guy was running into the field, not a very good idea. You know, okay, we had a large crowd over here. and this guy drove the wrong way. Like, kind of a circus, but okay. So now we wanted to export all of that video right here from this activity for camera view, which shows all of the activity in a unified timeline. I can go ahead and find the events that occurred, watch them. I could pause them, go back, frames, do all the same things I can do on my live camera layout, and I can also export directly from this interface, which makes the efficiency from an operator standpoint very nice. They don't have to understand, okay, well, what time is this? I know I'm zoomed into 7 o'clock. Is it 7:02? Oh, it's 7:02:31. Great. Remember that, and then go back to the camera layout in your live view and export it. You can do it all right here from this single pane of glass. All the same features apply here as well. So this activities for camera is quite efficient. It does show you a lot of information about your system. You know, let me keep zooming out here and let me lower this down so we can see. So by zooming in, zooming out, it really does help you understand exactly where all the activity is for your entire system, and then you can monitor it down below. So this is a really nice feature. Again, one of those things that is kind of a hidden gem and not too many people use. All right, so let's close this window out, and I want to go over the messenger. So the messenger, let me back up. Symphony, the VMS client here, has a built-in instant messaging app. Now, I'm going to pull this out so that it's a little bit larger and everyone can see it. The instant messaging app allows you to communicate with anybody that is connected actively to your system. So you could connect in instant chat with an administrator. You could chat with a guard. If you had a specific group of operators and they were logged in, you could chat with them as well. So, you know, let's say I want to send a message to my Symphony users. I'm going to say code blue, east wing, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and send this message. So the message gets sent, and that instant message will pop up on their screen on the bottom right-hand side, almost like a system tray notification, and it will alert them to something that's going on. You could say, hey, Ryan, check bookmark at 10 a.m., right? And I can send that message as well if I was logged in as an operator. So directly from Symphony client, without having to go anywhere else, to an instant messaging chat, maybe Teams or whatever else you might be using, you can do all of that communication here directly from the Symphony client interface. So again, adding to efficiency, adding to the cleanliness of the operation for those guards and operators that are sitting in front of this and managing it every single day. So it's quite a nice feature. If you wanted to add pre-written messages like the code blue that we had, you can do that as well. All and available. All right, and by doing this, you could just select that, and that could be a pre-written message. Double click that one, it populates it there and sends it out. So there's a lot of things you can do within the messenger, which is pretty cool as well. Okay. So that's the instant messaging app, again, native to Symphony client. Now we're going to jump into the map navigation. This is one of my more favorite components of Symphony. I love the efficiency that it brings to you with the on-screen overlays for alarm indication, for the active cameras that you're currently viewing and monitoring, to the actual location the camera is looking, and even the hyperlinking and synchronization between other maps. So Symphony has two different forms of maps that you can use. You could use a static image, or you could use a GIS map, which this is a GIS map. I'm just running it off a free GIS server so that you can get an idea of what that would look like. And then I've got hyperlinks for all of these different maps, like the airport that we were looking at, interlaced into it. Okay, so I'm gonna somewhat minimize this a little bit so that we can get a better idea of what these maps will do from a navigational standpoint. Okay, so if you have a map, you could do layers of maps as well and hyperlink those, so floors and floor 1, 2, 3, indoor, outdoor, etc. And if you have an icon on the map, like a camera, you can simply click on that icon on the map and it'll navigate directly to it in your active camera tile here in Symphony Client. So if I was to go to the world and I wanted to, maybe let's go back to this college campus, I want to see what the crowd looks like on that East Mall. I could say, oh, yep, there's quite a large crowd today. You know, must be having an event or a fair outdoors, which is great. If there's like substations, we do a lot of work with our perimeter products for substations. So if I was integrating our network manager software into Symphony to get perimeter alarms, and I could say this zone 1 on the very far northeast side of this map, has a zone breach. If I was to click on that camera that's associated with that, I could utilize that PTZ to monitor and view what might be occurring in that specific area and location. And now notice how the field of view changes when I'm moving it through its presets. So it's pretty neat that the map interface has that capability. Same thing here, you select a different camera on the map, it'll highlight that and it'll populate the video full screen. If you had IO triggers, things like that, you could drop them on the map as well. So if you wanted to open a gate or open a garage door for someone specifically, you could do that as well. Okay. So map navigation for me is huge. It really simplifies an operator's ability to navigate within a large system. So by simply clicking on a specific location, they can get an idea for where their LPR cameras are and select that camera. Most of them aren't going to understand that this is camera ID number 7 and its name is Core LPR, and find it in a device tree that's 1,000 cameras long, right? So map navigation becomes very important at that point. All right. Very good. So map navigation, again, you can build it and snap it in to kind of wherever you want within the client. There we go. A little switcheroo on me there. So you can, again, move that to wherever you want and manipulate that camera or that map to be at any point in your Symphony client. Okay, very good. All right. So the last functional component that I really want to overview and highlight for you is the alarm console. So let me get rid of this map. Let me get rid of this device tree so it's a little bit less busy. On the far right-hand side here, let me get WebEx out of the way, is the alarm console. The alarm console comes in 2 flavors. You have your simple mode, which is what we're viewing right now, which is always displayed on the right-hand side of Symphony Client. If you don't want to see it, you don't have any rules set up, you can minimize it and move it out of the field of view. But by opening this up, again, what it is a simple ticker feed, and really that's it. So if I click on one of the alarms, all it's going to do is populate that point in time when the alarm occurred, and then I can review it from there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pause that again. So let's go ahead and go to a trip line event. It'll pull up the other trip line camera that I have, and so on and so forth. So a very quick way to navigate through the alarms, but it doesn't give you a ton of rich data, rich information. For that to happen, you're going to want to use the expanding arrows here and take this into what we would call advanced mode. So the advanced mode of the alarm console gives you a lot more features than what you get in the simple mode. So what you're going to see here is a couple of things that I've pre-built into the advanced mode. So my rule says when somebody crosses this virtual trip line on that thermal camera at the edge of an airport, I want you to open in this top right quadrant the world map. Okay, so let me get my laser pointer on here because this is pretty important. So up here on the top right, you're going to see the map associated with that event, and I've populated it into one of the tiles. If there's maybe 2 other cameras that are associated with that specific alarm because they're near proximity, you can populate those here as well. If there's specific instructions for an operator, so one event might have a different set of rules and conditions that you have to follow post-event. You can put all of those procedures here in the instructions. Okay, so if you had step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., you can do all of that and document it so an operator knows exactly what to do instead of pulling up a loose leaf notebook and having to actually go back and review it. All right. So on the right-hand side here, down on the very bottom, if the operator needed to comment on something as well, like real alarm, and management needs to review or whatever it might be, they can put those comments in here. And they can mark it as a real actionable alarm, or they could just say, oh, it was a false alarm. It was somebody that just got lost and they came and breached the perimeter and then they quickly left. That's fine too. So there's a lot more information that you can get just from the simple dashboard. And now if you come up here onto the top left side, you can refine it even further. You can say, do I just want to see a single site? If you're connected to 10 sites, you could see all 10 and all the events and alarms that occurred from all of those. If I'm in management and then I'm in a higher level administrator, I might not want to see all open alarms. I might only want to see alarms that have been marked, right? So I can filter that down and I can say, just show me marked alarms. Okay, and so I can review these marked alarms from the operators that are reviewing them in their active daily, log, right? So this is quite a bit easier for me from an administrative standpoint to go, oh, okay, this is a concern. Yeah, let's export that video. We might need it for future reference. So do I want to show a single panel? Do I want to show a quad panel? What do I want to see? What information? Comments, details, farm names, rules, etc. I can even export this list so I could review it in XLS format, etc. So there's a lot more features that you get here within this alarm console that allows you to become much more efficient with managing the alarms that come through your servers. Okay, so let's go ahead and mark this as a real actionable alarm. Export, please. That's slide B for management. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So now there's two things that you can do after you've saved this alarm. You could share this. So maybe I need to share it with a logged in administrator. I'm the only one logged in, so I can't share it with myself. I guess I could, but I'm already marking it, so I don't really need to have it shared with me. Anyway, so you could share it with anybody that's logged into the system, which is great because you could immediately push this out to management and says, please export, share it with them, and they'll get the note and off they go. Okay. If you don't want it to show up in your list on the left-hand side anymore, you can then archive the alarm. So that moves the alarm out of the queue and it allows you to shore that up so that you're only seeing the active or unactioned alarms within this console. Just like anything else in Symphony, if you wanted to move the alarm console off to a second monitor, you could do that. If you needed to put it somewhere else, just from a visibility and layout standpoint, you can absolutely do that. Okay, so that's the advanced mode. All right, so we're going to shut this down, and that is the long and the short of the Symphony Introduction 101. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to put this back here and give you our information one more time. And we might go through and just read one or two of the questions if we had any. So Daryl, if you had any of those that you thought were pertinent, I'll let you go ahead and kind of read those off. And thank you all for attending. We appreciate your time, and hopefully this was informative.
Hey, it's Katie. I don't know where Daryl is, so I will read a couple questions for you.
Thanks, Katie.
Okay, so Melissa was wondering, so this was answered directly to Melissa, but I thought I would read it out loud so in case anyone else had the same question. So can we assign an operator to only have access to playback 24 hours?
Yeah, the answer, the short answer here, thanks, Tom, was yes, you can limit how long users can access historical video. Our access rights per users is very granular. So if you wanted to get down to how long they could do it, what cameras they could review, even exporting, like they might be able to review for 24 hours, but they can never export. You could even assign those permissions. So absolutely, Melissa, if you wanted to just be able to review for 24 hours, awesome. If you want to be able to export, you can limit those features and functions as well. So absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Another question then. Once the alarm is recorded, and if the operator would like to track that vehicle on move, is there a key to activate the vehicle tracking?
Is there a key to activate the vehicle tracking? All right, let's go with the short answer. So this one here is by Tom as well, and then I'll add a little bit of color to it. So it says that if the object is on the same camera, we automatically keep tracking it as you saw. If it leaves the camera, we won't track it to other cameras unless you use LPR in these cameras to track that way. Yeah, so that's a pretty thorough answer. So anywhere that the camera can see it in its original field of view, it will track that asset through the entire field of view. There's also one other subset of that too, which is what if you were using a pan-tilt zoom camera, what we would call auto PTZ tracking, which could track a specific asset through the entire field of view and then also pan left and zoom in onto it as it gets farther away. So that's a functional component. But going from camera 1 to camera 2 to camera 4 and saying this is the same car that traveled through all 4, no, not yet. We can't do that. We do have the option with LPR tags to, when you read an LPR, you could pull it up on the screen and continue to show that read, and then that would appear through all those different camera fields of view. So that's a good question, Mr. Singh. So it's absolutely a relative question too, because future dates analytics should be able to do that for you. If you did refer back to the visual tracker button, that's why we've added those for the manual input, to where an operator can easily navigate from camera 1 through camera 4 just by right-clicking or left-clicking onto that next camera in line and track the car through it. So good question.
Good. And just to clarify, I know that it was clarified in the question panel, but LPR stands for license plate recognition.
Yep.
Yes, sometimes Ryan gets going on his technical things and forgets maybe everybody's not up to speed with everything he's saying.
Yeah, I apologize. I do have that problem.
It's all good because you live in this, so you know. Okay, I'm going to just ask one final question that just came in here, and then maybe we'll wrap things up. So, Ryan, can you support third-party analytics software to get integrated?
Yes, we can. So we have a RESTful API that we could make use of. We also have an SDK that you could make use of as well. So if there's an analytic that we do not currently have within Symphony, by all means, you could integrate through that API or the SDK and pull that data into Symphony to trigger events and action. So absolutely. We're a very open platform and are happy to work with other vendors to integrate their solutions into Symphony.
Perfect. And I think that actually answers the next question that just came in, but can Symphony work with other software?
Yeah, Symphony has a lot of different mechanisms to do it. The two most common are the API and the SDK. There's a lot of other communication paths that we can take, so we can run specific commands, like doing batch files and things like that. You can run programs. You can even send TCP communication to and receive from. So there's a myriad of different ways to integrate to anything from PLC logic systems, part access control, as you saw Symphony's network manager for perimeter intrusion. There's a host of different devices, Advantex ATA modules, like you name it. Yeah, so if you want to do something, you can do it in Symphony. It's just what media are you going to use to do it is usually the question, yeah.
Okay, well, I think that we can wrap things up on that point, Ryan. If you have any final closing comments.
No, really just a big thank you again. We're going to be doing these presentations or these e-seminars every couple of weeks throughout the rest of the summer. So if you have interest, please visit our website and search for our e-seminars. You'll find a host of those, and hopefully they're engaging enough for you as well. So thanks again.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ryan.